Lenny Bruce said, "It's all theater anyway." Shakespeare said, "All the world's a stage." So welcome once again, students, to GLIT 155, International Crime Fiction. This is the voice of Kevin Jones, your kindly old professor, and I want today to mention a few things, to explain a few things that will sort of guide you on your way through the course, helping you to be successful, helping you to even enjoy the course. I'm aware, as this is a general education course, that not many of you probably are big crime fiction readers. Not many of you perhaps really want to be in this class, but you don't have a whole lot of choice in terms of literature and humanities. Well, anyway, what we're going to do is make the course ideally as interesting and as beneficial and as useful as possible. Now, there are many, many kinds of crime fiction, probably too many to count. I think I mentioned at one point in one of my notes for the course that perhaps the earliest incidents of crime fiction could be traced to the Bible and the story of Cain and Abel. I'm not sure we really need to go back that far. After all, it's only an 8-week course. So let's take it from about the mid-19th century to the present, shall we? If you're familiar at all with crime fiction, you probably are thinking of, well, Clue, perhaps, the classic board game based on British manor house mysteries, or cozies as they're sometimes called. They feature amateur detectives, usually kind of eccentric, shall we say. Think Hercule Poirot, think Miss Marple, Agatha Christie's two most memorable creations, or think Sherlock Holmes. Eccentricity was one of his calling cards. And if you're familiar with Jessica Fletcher and Murder, She Wrote, Angela Lansbury, or you might ask your grandparents, Sunday nights on television, beautiful Cape Cod-looking town, murderous people in it. Murderous, terrible, awful. But she always solved the crime in a very efficient manner by the end of the hour. So if you've ever played Clue, it's Colonel Mustard in the library with a lead pipe, right? Yes, there it is. He's gone, poor man. How did it happen? So that's the cozy, the amateur detective. Now, there are other forms that come into play a little bit later in the century. You've got, in America, the pulp fiction detective. Usually rough, tough, independent, don't take nothing from nobody, and solves the mysteries pretty much by himself, or maybe with the aid of a sidekick. Now, one of the fascinating things about this sort of crime fiction is that it's got its dark angles. It's called noir, and film noir, you may have heard of film noir, is often in black and white. But things really aren't in black and white in a film noir. What they are is shades of gray. There are no absolutes. There are no real moral compasses anywhere. It's sort of like the detective, the villain, and everybody else is sort of caught in a web of grayness, of uncertainty. And that's why, of course, the fedora is gray. Now, another form of noir, what we're going to be doing this semester, this term, is the police procedural for the most part. And those are, of course, books which feature police and feature their procedures. In this term, we're doing Scandinavian noir, so there are some significant differences between what's going on in American crime fiction and what's going on in Scandinavian crime fiction. Practices, procedures, attitudes might be a bit different. But one of the things that you always find in a noir police procedural is a conflicted detective. A good person, but not completely good, has a number of faults, has a number of problems, has a number of difficulties, but solves the case as well as he or she can by the end of the book, given those faults, or perhaps utilizing those faults. So that's the important thing to think about in terms of police procedurals. They go back a long, long way. There are stories, novels by, say, Andrew Pepper about a really interesting character called Pike, who works with Sir Robert Peel, sometimes well and sometimes not, and sometimes Pike does jail time for insulting Robert Peel, something he didn't really want to do in those days. Meanwhile, back at the noir, or basic crime fiction attitude, the noir is maybe an American creation, but certain countries, writers in certain countries, have taken the idea and just run with it. Scotland, Ireland produces a whole lot of really great crime fiction. Ian Rankin for one, John Connolly for another. Simply amazing authors that I would encourage you to look into if you're looking for a fifth book. Also, Scandinavia, for some reason, has taken the international crime fiction noir attitude and just run with it. So there's really great stuff going on in Scandinavian crime fiction beyond the 4 books that are assigned. And one of the things that I think is interesting about a literature course, or this literature course, is that many of the authors are actually still alive. Your first author, you have a team, Maj Sowal and Perwalu. Perwalu has been dead for maybe 35 years, but Maj Sowal is still alive. You've got Joe Nesbo, who is very much alive, and then you've got Henning Mankell. Yes, lost him. We lost him in October of 2015. And the final assigned book for the course is Sig Larson, who died tragically just about several months before his books were published. Never got to see them in print, never got to realize that his writing would sort of inform the writings of Scandinavian fiction. So if you're looking for a fifth book, you can do those people. They are series novels, all of them, about 10 to 15 books in the series. So what you might want to do for your fifth novel is pick out one that is later in the series and see how the character has developed. See how the character has solved his problems, her problems, and moved on with their life, if they have. Well, I think that's about enough for now. We'll be talking later and throughout the semester. And if you have any ideas, if you have a clue, please let's talk about it in the discussion sections of the course. Bye for now.